You know, we always thought about climate change coming, but it's here. You know, kei konei I nai tunu nei. So, yeah, we do have to respond. Like, we can't just be sitting around just talking about it. Because I come up the block every day and, yeah, I see the changes constantly on a daily and, you know, weekly sort of basis. So it's real maharahara.
Personally, I'm absolutely sick of the word resilient and resilience. I think it's just the wrong word. In many parts of the world now, communities are sick of being told they need to be more resilient. They are completely over it because that doesn't give any solutions to things that they didn't necessarily cause or create themselves. I actually think we need transformative change.
Our bridges are the most important, you know. If our bridge gets cut off over here or another big slip comes down in the Mangahauini, we all cut off. You know, and the 35 is the main blood vein for us, you know, both ways.
Climate change, extreme weather, and human impact are all major factors to the new environmental norm in Te Tai Rāwhiti. Mai ngā maunga ki ngā moana, ka apu haere. Our whenua is being devoured, our riverbanks consumed, our moana left with the aftermath. He apu whenua, he apu tangata. This series explores the why. Mātai nuku, mātai rangi, mātai ki uta, mātai ki tai. This episode concentrates on climate change and the experts along with our community's observations.
I think, first of all, it's important that we acknowledge that climate change is a thing. Number one is acknowledging it. Number two is supporting the expertise of the people who are making recommendations about how we can address it. And number three, I have to say, whānau, it's just being better citizens and thinking about our own actions in our own backyards.
We're facing a much heightened sense of appreciation for the changing climate and weather extremes seems to be within the community, which brings concerns, but I think it's better that we're concerned than unconcerned about those things personally. And we just need to find ways of accepting some of that, planning for those changes. And for some people that means that they leave the region. It's just they're too vulnerable in coming years, and other people will dig in and survive and try to make the best of it.
So what it essentially means to me is from the sea to the mountains, we will strategise to not only survive but to thrive, to plan creatively and to act courageously. And that's what my tūpuna have left as a blueprint, as a model.
Tuku whakaheke, tuku whakaheke, tuku whakaheke. Local scientists and Taiao experts have been busy as they track the current climate change indicators. Me te whakatau I te ahunga whakamua mō ngā tau e heke mai ana.
Yeah, the overall things will be warmer and we're going to have far more drought periods, but we're also going to have more extreme weather events. And so for those extreme weather events, the amount of rainfall coming down on them will be greater than what we have been experiencing in the past. And to the extent there, we have people talking about 1 in 100 year events. We're stopping talking about it in that terms because it doesn't really mean anything anymore. When they do happen, the impacts will be greater. So you've actually got to then work on, okay, how can you mitigate those impacts? And that is through just having better land use. We've had 4 marae within the region classified as Category 3 in Gabriel. So that means that those maraes will end up being relocated somewhere safer. Rangatira marae, 2.6 metres of water through that marae, and that's just almost unbelievable. And again, up in Uawa, we have 2 there where those marae just get flooded and the risk is too great in the future. So that actually highlights another issue about longer term. You know, if weather changes like it is, are we going to have more marae that need to relocate over time? It's going to be a difficult issue that we're going to be facing, I think, within the next 5 to 10 years.
The silt is having a huge impact on our moana. You know, it blocks the sunlight in the water column, so which means less sunlight hits the seaweeds and stuff. Less seaweed means less habitat for fish, less kai for fish, less refuges for small fish to hide. And so yeah, just a general decline in sea life. Over the last 10 or 20 years, the changes have been pretty negative, and so we keep an eye on populations of birds along our coastline, you know, penguins, grey-faced petrels or oi on Whangaokena and at Waimahuru, and monitor them, and they give us a broader picture of the wider, especially the marine in Aotearoa. With the recent La Nina and the warmer oceans, a lot of the populations of birds have been doing it really hard, and not just the birds, some of our marine mammals like our fur seals. We've noticed big diebacks in the young fur seals, and a lot of them are really emaciated. That's because the food that they normally eat, because of the warmer sea temperatures, they go deeper or further out to sea.
So all the land erosion, all the woody debris that's coming down in a deluge during these extreme weather events that we've had, multiple back-to-back events over the last 5 years, have impacted this area, this precious resource. A lot of our marae are, you know, on or around the coast. We get most of our kaimoana here, which is Pāwa, Koura. Those are our two main ones here, Pupu. And then, of course, all our fishing happens here and around to the rocks there. So these places they're hammered, completely thrashed. On the few times that we went out the summer just gone, very scarce, the kai now. Where you would normally find a Pāwa or maybe a Koura, you're finding a handful of twigs and pine cones, and everything's all matted up like little mini log jams under the ocean. But more alarming is the film, the sediment film, and the muddy, slippery, gooey mess in that part of the rocky shore that's really the habitat for all our kaimoana. So I wonder what it's going to look like coming back and how long that's going to take.
The amount of sediment that's come down and the impact it's actually having out in the ocean is the one piece of work. It hasn't been finished yet. It's work done by NIWA, looking at what the inundation of sediment on the seabed is actually having on the fauna. And the idea is over the next wee while we'll actually get that analysed so we can actually work out what's the relationship between what we're seeing in the ocean, in the shallow ocean, and the impact on the fauna, and where it's all come from. What different land uses actually contributed the most for that impact out in the ocean.
Well, for what I do, as a landscape scientist, as a geomorphologist, part of my job is to understand how my rivers do what they do, how they adjust in the way that they do. So the beauty of the East Coast is that each of the rivers has got its own soul. It's got its own way of doing things, and working that out, right? How the geologic response and the climate response and the human response is so different in our different rivers. So we know climate change is coming. We know the reality of what it brings, but we're still stuck in response crisis management, never actually getting to coherent planning for what we could, should, ought to be doing, because the information base is there, both from science and from local knowledge perspective. They're actually aligned remarkably well.
Earlier this year, locals got together to acknowledge a year on from Cyclone Gabrielle.
We're here at the Kamuri Resilience Research Symposium as an opportunity to bring together lots of local researchers who have been working on projects before, during and after Cyclone Gabrielle, and to allow the community to see what kind of information and findings, evidence are available for them to use as we go about advocating on behalf of the community for change amongst ourselves, within the region, and also to central government and perhaps even beyond overseas.
So we're in a state of imbalance now, ko titaha. And how do we get back into balance? Because Papatūānuku is telling us, ka nui. E me whakarongo tātou.
Gisborne finds itself in a difficult position, and I don't need to explain this to some of you here, you'll be well aware of it, but the council has a low ratepayer base, high levels of deprivation in its population, and a below average median wage with enormous geographic challenges. And I take my hat off to the council for the decisions they made around cleaning up quickly and trying to provide some hope.
What happens when bridges collapse, roads are flooded or washed away, power is cut, and telecommunications are down for days or weeks at a time? We're looking for an insight into how the loss of connections impacted whānau communities.
We have been the fruit bowl of this country for so long, and we can be again. I think we're all at a juncture now where we appreciate we know better now, it's time to do better. I know people are tired of hearing the kōrero, right tree, right place, but that's the reality of where we are.
Ko te waipara, tētai āhuatanga nui, e patu nei tō tātou Taiao. Awa mai, moana mai.
The issues we face here are a little unique. We've got very soft underlying geologies in Tai Rāwhiti. We've got a lot of large sediment, which is what is taken out of the river. That is filling the riverbed up, so it's reducing the capacity of the river. As the capacity of the river declines, it's pushing the flow into the banks. And on some properties in the lower Waiapu, we are seeing large areas of what is our best soils really, alluvial flats being captured by the river, and that sediment that is going down the river, if it's not deposited in the riverbed, it's going out to sea and creating some real sediment issues in the moana.
Well, because the ground has been so wet, smaller events are having a far greater impact than they would have done if it had been drier for a longer period before. So right now, the land is as vulnerable as it can be because there's so much exposed sediment that's able to be moved. We've got so little cover on it that we're going to get more sediment being conveyed through to the bottom end of the river.
Some of that build-up, the aggregation of material in the Tapawai, or particularly under Waiapu, is pretty much unprecedented. One of the aspects we need to get very, very clear going forward is this rehabilitation of the Tai Rāwhiti is going to have to be from the mountains right down to the sea. So the work that's going on in the Raukuras now in terms of pest control is absolutely essential to our future. We've had a build-up of feral animals in there over what is not that long a time, but it's been devastating. As a result of losing the understory and gaps in the forest there, we've had some devastating results, and the initiatives taken by Graham Atkins and a group of people he's involved with has built a momentum that really needs to carry on.
If all these groups are collecting samples, and hopefully over time, if the land use changes, we can see improvement in the river, and that sampling that's going on, looking at sediment, turbidity and those other things, we can see changes. And with eDNA, we could hopefully start to see some of those freshwater mihinga kai species come back in again into the river system. But that land use change is a critical thing that has to really feed through in our rivers, is where we need to monitor and then over time see if the changes we make in the catchment actually are improving our rivers and actually leading to a better benefit in environmental health for the region.
So we need to be thinking about creating roughness back on the hill slopes and creating roughness back along river corridors. That's why this mosaic is the only kind of way we can think about going forward from here. And if we can create enough roughness and the channel systems and enough riparian vegetation along them, then we reduce flooding hazards downstream. And so I think we've just got to look at these things in a slightly different way and learn to live with the river.
Absolutely. Kei ngā waona ke mātauranga. Ko pāngia hoki te waipara I te kaunga o te wai. Bottled water has become the preferred option for many because they're just not sure what's in our water or how safe it is to drink.
that's quite a shock to me. And then even buying water from a tank, you know, from the tank supply, I think it's about $500 or $600 a tank. And so, yeah, big worry going forward into the future is, you know, how we sort all that out. It's a basic right, you know, fresh water, human right.
Our water quality is rubbish. You have the rivers like the Waipu, which for its size, it's a international, global type thing. It's actually quite a small river, but it has the biggest sediment load of any river at all. So that's really bizarre, as in it shouldn't be happening, but it is. And it just really goes to show that if you work on the land and change it, and you don't think about the consequences, the impact is felt downstream, and it is going to be felt for generations to come.
It's a big one because, yeah, we can't, you know, no more fresh water, and, you know, declining eels, it's all going the wrong way. But that's what attracted me to this Taiao mihi, is that we can turn things around.
One person who wears several environmental hats is Mere Tamanui. She's been monitoring the awa post-cyclone Gabrielle.
Water monitoring and water way is really dear to my heart and to my whānau. It's our cultural spaces, our spaces of well-being. And as you can see here, we were able to jump from bank to bank only but a few years ago. You can see the millions of cubic metres of silt and sediment that's been washed out to sea. Our mussels, it has been hugely affected by the deposited sediment in our awa to the point where it's even shifted our saltwater wedge, which means shifting ecology. For us, now it's looking at the recovery of that and what does that look like. But in terms of climate change and more frequent adverse events, it's going to be a struggle for recovery, especially knowing their value, what that one mussel can filter 1 litre per hour. For us, that's hugely important to maintaining the quality of our fresh water, to be able to filter out nutrients, extra nutrients from farm runoffs, from forestry, from other land users, from roads. So this is a clarity tube, and it measures in centimetres the distance that you can see underwater, checking for the suspended sediment within water. Do this twice and get the average. So at the moment, our clarity is reading 32 centimetres. We were getting measurements of 70 to 80, 90, sometimes even 100 a few years ago before the adverse events started to happen in 2018. With the temperature increasing, you can also provide unhealthy conditions for your fish. They only like temperatures under 20 degrees. Anything 30 degrees and over is detrimental for our fish species. What goes up must come down. We've found whitebait eggs. That's got to be a positive for us out of the cyclone recovery, so fish are coming back to recruit. What that looks like, we're not sure over time. Every species is different, and the micros to the macros of our species. So I liken our bugs in our awa to like the quill to the whale. So once those bugs are affected, it'll change the species that are living in your area.
Tō tātou ara matua e ngā kau nui te ana. Ara, te ara matua 35. Te ara rongonui, puta noi te motu. But it's also been heavily impacted. Kua patua kinotia. Our journey up the coast is now longer, and it's always in the back of our minds. Will the road be closed?
We have a lot of damage to our roads, but most of them are on the best line we've got available. It's just that that line is the best of a lot of reasonably poor options. I really feel for people maintaining the roads. No sooner got through something and it erodes again. A lot of people from outside our region just don't understand, yeah, it's going to be a fact of life. We have this underlying geology that's not that friendly towards having structural soundness in our infrastructure, particularly our roads and our bridges. If we could stabilise all the waterways and the adjoining land, you get the water control onto roads right up to speed and maintain it nicely, we would minimise the problem. But I think with the slopes we have here, we are always going to have a bit of an issue.
He ke o te rangi tū whakairi o the Blackbee, aka Boss, has been on the roads for nearly 20 years, and his father even longer.
Oh yeah, our 35 is broken. We had a lot of ups and downs with our highway, but we're proud. We love our road, we love our highway, we drive it every day. We see Auntie and Uncle going to Gizzy to go and do their 2 weekly shopping, you know. There's ways of fixing things, and if we don't fix it, we're gonna hurt the whole coast. Our biggest hotspots at the moment, like around riverbeds, really. Riverbeds, the sea, and yeah, our bridges. Our bridges are the most important, you know. If our bridge gets cut off over here, or another big slip comes down in the Mangai, we're all cut off. Yeah, the fixing it part is real hard, trying to come up with good ways and better ways to fix things and preventative maintenance. With the rainfall, bigger rainfalls and stuff like that, we've been proactive in going with, when we've been changing out culverts, we've been putting in bigger culverts, we've been suggesting to put in scour protection, using different metals on our local roads so it gives it more grading cycle time, stuff like that. We do have to start adapting, and I think that's the way we have to be.
E hara I te mea, ko te waipara me ngā awa anake I patua kinotia. Ko ngā rākau take a nōhoki. Myrtle Rust is a fungal disease transported by the wind, which is currently affecting our myrtle species, like manuka and pohutukawa. It's already eradicated the ramarama tree from the coast.
Other regions of the country, myrtle rust slows down at this time of the year, but there's still the yellow pustules, which is the stage of myrtle rust where the spores can blow in the wind. There's still yellow pustules on the purukawa planted around our marae. With warmer temperatures forecast in the future, our poor myrtles aren't going to get any rest from myrtle rust. And so we've also noticed where I live, mosquitoes. We never used to have to worry about mosquitoes before when we were working outdoors, and now just over the last 2 or 3 years or 2 years, mosquitoes are a constant problem now.
The change in weather patterns means it's coming from overseas. The impacts in Gisborne Te Rāwhiti haven't been that great so far, but you know, we're now getting to see it in Puhutukawa. And so a bellwether species like that, if we lost Puhutukawa, where would we be? And so those things that are really being driven by climate change and how all the winds are changing, so these things are blowing in from Australia or elsewhere, and the impact that has longer term. So when we think about recloaking the whenua, if you like, which is the phrase often we're using, we're really having to think about how do we get rid of that other stuff which is stopping that recloaking from occurring.
It's not only the myrtles that are at risk. Graham Atkins has found another rari on the tōtara, which is yet to be tested.
We're here today to get some soil samples, some leaf samples. As you can see, the tōtara don't look too healthy. They say this disease is tōtara leaf blight. It's a phytophthora, so a root pathogen that gets in through the old roots and then works its way up the tree. And so over the nearly a year since I first noticed these trees, I can see that the brown is creeping higher and higher up the trees. So I don't think they like it. Our plants, our trees are under stress through either long, hot, dry spells or the exact opposite, long, wet spells, which is what we've just had over the previous 2 or 3 years or 5 years nearly. And so it stresses the trees and it makes them a lot more vulnerable to new diseases or new pathogens. And so sad to see.
Climate change hui are happening a lot now. Koe nei ngā hui ka kitea, ka rangona ngā kōrero āwhina a te hunga mōhio. Niwa scientists gathered at Hiruharama to share their latest mahi, post-cyclones.
We're finding that in the nearshore environment, there's a huge amount of mud sitting around in the water and on the seabed and affecting some of the reefs. We're seeing that some of the large seaweeds have actually died off and left behind their holdfast, which is how they cling to the rocks. So that's not a great story, and we're trying to untangle that and you know, talking to communities and Te Hapu Our results also show, though, once you get further out into deeper water, so maybe like 50 to 70 metres water depth, that's, 10, 20 kilometres off the coast, actually it's a really different story, and the water is really clear and things still look quite healthy. We're seeing large sponges and corals that are, live for tens of years, and so they're not really affected. And so it really is a close to the coast situation.
This is sort of a sea surface temperature, and anywhere you see that it's like yellow or red, that means the sea surface was warmer than it usually is in that place. And anywhere it's sort of one of blue colours, it was colder. But what with climate change and also the La Nina, we had what's called a marine heat wave. So basically it was stonking hot over this whole area. Because the thing is, cyclones feed on sea surface temperature. It's what gives it its energy and allows it to sort of keep having that energy as it's moving south. So essentially, New Zealand was sort of going, have at us. So that's sort of something to remember in the future. Long-term climate change is going to make flooding worse. But flooding is a thing, sometimes you get sort of, a decade or two of really bad flooding, and then it might be sort of not as bad for a while, and then, so, it's like there always were big floods. Climate change, will intensify that.
Rain anxiety is when you get stressed out when you hear the rain, or you worry at night when you hear the rain. Just the sound of rain now can trigger intense stress and chronic anxiety. It's a thing globally now, definitely in Australia, like rain anxiety, climate fatigue are becoming big mental health issues for communities who are living and going through these extreme weather events.
It's probably our biggest, one of our biggest issues, second only probably to the land use issue that we have. It was all very well, and rightly so, for people to learn that they could put their hand up and say, I need some help. Unfortunately, the help wasn't there to help them and wasn't funded. So our focus now is on how do we provide better funding for mental health support.
I've been leading a community-led research project for the Ministry of Health on the impacts on health and well-being in the community from not just Cyclone Gabriel, but all these other repeated extreme weather events. There is an increase in chronic mental health issues like never before. We're having to adapt now to just a whole new weather pattern, and I think that causes another stress on the community, is knowing that things will never be like they were.
So there's that heaviness that is still here, but we've also seen communities coming together to support each other, and that's really hopeful. Someone just asked us, what's this research going to do? And that's a really important question. What is the role of research? We need commitment from outside agencies, from government, as well as within our own communities to keep the mahi going, because we know these events are going to happen more and more. And we know that the further up the coast you go, the further away from resources, these inequities that were already there are being exacerbated by these events. So we need to stay focused on the long game.
Which means we have to be solutions focused, planning for our future. Ko tīmata ngā iwi ki te takatū. Kei te kōrero tō tātou Taiao kia tātou anō. Ko tā tātou, ko te mātai, te titiro, me te whakarongo.
I think that's what we've got to look at doing as a community, rather than just sitting back and waiting for the government or the council to come and save us. Every pa, every community land block has to step up and show leadership in all our different kokoru,
There's lots of opportunity for innovation, and in some ways we're forced to innovate in things like what we're trying to do with an Indigenous bioeconomy, sort of how do we create a new industry that's based around Indigenous forests and organisms, is driven by the fact that we can't keep doing what we've done in terms of the footprint of pasture and pine in the region. The rules are tightening up, and just the economics of trying to farm on massively erosion-prone land and trying to grow pine trees on massively erosion-prone land is unviable going forward in many situations. So yeah, that sort of necessity is breeding invention and innovation.
We have our own mātauranga of how to do things. Big landowners within Ngāti Porou, you know, the haves and the have-nots, that sort of a thing. But as I say, you start at a whānau level, whānau, marae, hapu, as long as we retain the sanctity of those parts of our social structures and not takahi them or allow others to come in and impose themselves on us, is pretty hammered at the moment. Because as is our whenua, our wai, so are we. It's just like we're one and the same with those places and those things. So, and that's something that we need to remind ourselves of every time we make a decision to take one stone, to take one cup of water, to use anything that we do in our place and around Ngāti Porou. We have to change the way that we think. For our mokopuna, everyone's saying mokopuna decisions. Like, don't let that get tired. I think it's something that we need to wake up to every day and say mokopuna decisions. Even if you don't have kids, make a decision as if, you know, you knew you could see your mokopuna in front of you, all sitting in a row, smiling up at their nanny or their papa, saying thank you for doing what you did when you did that.